we go. Sorry about that, folks. For some reason, I was getting a lot of spinny. I had to kick the computer back on again, and I don't know what was wrong. I never know what's going on. But I'm glad to see you guys didn't have any trouble signing in. Nice to see you this evening. We got lots of good nature to share, so how about if we get our screen share started? How about if we get our screen share started? Here we go. Let's start from the beginning. Now, so last week, maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't get a chance to read it, but the column featured this chubby little sparrow called the Fox Sparrow. And it's a bird, I have to say, I haven't seen that many of them. But when I do, it's usually not the bird that catches my eye. It is the ruckus it's creating. This is a bird that likes to feed on the ground, and each time I have seen it, it's been in either the spring or the fall, and it's been kicking up leaf litter, looking for seeds, looking for insects. It's a sparrow, and so often I'll hear people say, "Oh, it's just a sparrow." But remember, folks, we have lots and lots of different kinds of sparrows. I would say I looked for a graphic for tonight's program that would show sparrows size comparison, so you could see just how large, how heavy-bodied the fox sparrow was in comparison to, say, the chipping sparrow, which we're also going to talk about this evening. Now, this isn't a bird. I know we're approaching the time now when people say, "Oh my gosh, I had a huge sparrow at my feeder today." We are approaching the time when the female red-winged blackbirds are returning. And a lot of times, if you've not seen a female red-winged blackbird, they don't look at all like the males. They're not black. They don't have red on their wings, or not very much, maybe just a hint of orange. But people sometimes think that they are large sparrows. The fox sparrow is not as big as a female redwing, but every time I see the bird, the first thing that comes to mind is chunky. They do, in our area, they have some brownish, reddish brown, or what would be called rufous coloring, but you can see there's some gray. The breast is heavily speckled, and then check out that bill. That is a sparrow bill. A red-winged blackbird has a little bit longer bill. They belong to the icterid, or the blackbird family, so they're going to have a longer, pointier bill. In the article, I mentioned how one of the first times I saw a fox sparrow, I actually mistook it for a thrush. Thrushes also are a bird that has reddish brown on it oftentimes, and the breast is heavily speckled. Thrushes, though, robins are thrushes. So if you can picture a robin's bill on a bird, that's the giveaway for identifying one of the giveaways for identifying a thrush versus a fox sparrow. The other thing is that fox sparrows aren't going to be seen around here in the summertime. They're heading up north where they will do their breeding. So it's a bird we tend to see during the migration period, and not too many other times. So this article ran, and one of the things I love about putting a column in the newspaper is the correspondence that we get back from it. And this morning I was delighted to receive an email from a woman who said, who would have thought that a couple of days ago on Saturday, I read your article about the fox sparrow. I'd never seen one, or at least I don't think I ever have. And this morning, as I was fixing breakfast around 7:30, there it was, perched in the burning bush right outside my kitchen window. My first thought was, gee, that's a chubby thrush. It must be due any day now. Looking again, I realized it wasn't as sleek as the thrushes I've seen quickly running across the yard. Looking outside again, it was foraging under the mugo pine, and I suddenly realized it was the fox sparrow. Well, talk about a connection. I love it when people read about something and you think maybe you've never seen or heard of it before, and then something trips in your mind, and then all of a sudden you start to notice them. So, this reader took a lot of pictures, and she sent one. Are you ready? Here we go. Here it is, folks. No, she said it is kind of fuzzy, blurry. I did try to enlarge it a little bit, but I would love to hear your opinions on this. I don't think it's a fox sparrow. I'm thinking it probably is a thrush. Again, I am not a birding expert by any means, and I usually need two or three views, from the side, from the front. This doesn't really make it possible to see all the features, but a fox sparrow, I think there's usually a little more pattern on the back. We don't have quite this much rufous when we're looking at a fox sparrow. Love to hear your opinions on this. So what I was thinking, so up here on the upper left, that's our fox sparrow. On the right, we have a wood thrush. Down at the bottom, we have a brown thrasher. Now, thrashers are quite large. I don't think that bird really was big enough to be a thrasher. Now, if we go back and look again, so we did have some snow yesterday, and birds, the woman that wrote mentioned that this bird didn't look as smooth or as sleek as the thrushes she's used to seeing. When it's cold out, birds fluff their feathers up. So I'm kind of think we're looking at a fluffy thrush as opposed to a chubby fox. But again, I would welcome your comments in the chat if you happen to have a strong feeling one way or another of what the bird is that we're looking at. I just realized, yeah, Jerry, that's what I was thinking too. Maybe a wood thrush. Um, that's sort of the way I was leaning. That tail. It's odd angle too to really be able to make a firm ID. But I was sort of leaning towards wood thrush. Those dark spots. We have other thrushes that are moving around right now. Hermit thrush was reported the other day. Wood thrush, though, is the one that I associate with that reddish brown color and those deep dark streaks on the breast. So I don't know. I haven't gotten back to this person yet to share my thoughts on this, but I was so excited. At least she's paying attention, and maybe there will be a fox sparrow or two in her future. But anyway, it's one of those. I kind of that sound they play on what is it? The Price is Right. Bum bum ba bum bum. So it was close, but I think there was no cigar. But there was another sparrow that has been very evident lately, the chipping sparrow. Now this, John and Bobby, I have to thank you for this photo. We're going to start out here looking at the nest of this particular sparrow. We had that incredible wind last Thursday. We were supposed to, out at Hickory Knolls, we were supposed to host our flashlight egg hunt Thursday night. And thank goodness we were able to reschedule everybody who'd signed up for that Thursday night event and reschedule them to the Friday. It meant we had a really busy Friday night, but I don't know, I think some of those little kids with their little Easter baskets would have blown away 50-mile-an-hour winds. So anyway, John, you were out and you found this nest on the ground. What struck me about it was it's fairly small size. It looks to be about 3 inches or so around. Um, and then if you look at the lining, that's another giveaway. There's a whole bunch of hair in that nest. Um, that's a sign, a signature of. We've got a couple of birds in this area that will line their nests with hair and fur. Um, One of them being the tufted titmouse, but titmice are cavity nesters, and I suppose if it's an open cavity, maybe it's a snag, broken off oak tree in the woods. I suppose in that situation, a nest might get hit and get blown out. But I'm strongly feel that this is a chipping sparrow because when the nest is small, it's somewhat flimsily constructed. It doesn't get some birds like our goldfinches. They wrap plant material. They bind their nest to the twigs that they build it on. Robins, they cement their nests with mud. The chipping sparrows, they kind of loosely pack this plant material in a grouping of twigs in a tree, and I'm surprised they don't all blow down. But the hallmark of the chipping sparrow is lining their nest with hair. Years ago, in fact, people used to call them the hair bird. When we got around using horses as opposed to automobiles, there was a lot of horsehair from manes and tails that these birds would collect, and they'd line their nests with too. We're seeing chipping sparrows around a lot now. Remember, I said the fox sparrow. It's a chunky bird. It's got a heavily streaked breast. It's what I would call chubby. These chipping sparrows, on the other hand, are small as sparrows go. They're bigger than, say, a kinglet or something like that, but they are definitely on the smaller size of our local sparrows. They've got some reddish brown or rufous. They've got that cap on the head, and then they've got a black line that goes through the eyes. Probably though, besides the red cap and their hairy nests, the other hallmarks of the chipping sparrow, and I just heard one today, Mike, when I was talking to you, I pointed up in the tree. It's their chipping sound that they make. Let's take a listen. Uh, um, oh, Tell you what, Diane, we'll get back to that Fox Sparrow question there in a second. I just realized that I can access the chat while we're doing the slideshow. um, so the chipping sparrow has this sort of mechanical sound to its song. It sounds to me like there's a loose belt or maybe a ball bearing that's gone wonky, and it makes this chipping sound, and they're in pretty much every neighborhood. When I walk to work, I hear chipping sparrows on every other block. So they're a fairly common bird, and they you can see them now before the leaves fall out on the leaves leaf out on the trees. You'll be seeing these birds flitting around. I will often see them on the sidewalk picking up. I don't know if they're picking up little insects or seeds that they're finding there to eat, or if they're picking up things to line their nest with. But I will often see these birds hopping along on sidewalks. So keep your eye out for the chipping sparrow. The fox sparrows, I don't know how much longer we're going to be seeing them. Look for them in their distinctive foraging styles. And maybe we'll reach a decision if we go back here on what the reader saw. Here. Diane, I think that's the picture you were talking about. And This is the picture the reader sent. Um, and again, a little more pattern on the back of the fox sparrow, less pattern on the back.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a good picture of that fox sparrow because I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's up in the upper left too. That's another fox sparrow. There is regional variation in how much reddish orange they have. Um,
Okay.
and again, it's to me, it's the bird is secondary to the way it kind of reminds me of, sometimes my desk will get a little messy and I'll be trying to find a piece of paper and I'll be flinging papers all over the place trying to find the one I'm looking for. That's what the fox sparrow reminds me of when they're flipping through all the leaves looking for the bugs and the seeds that are underneath.
I know whenever I do one of the bird counts, I really am challenged by the different sparrows.
Yes, yes, there are. There's some that are obvious, but most of them. Well, you've probably heard that LBB or LBJ, little brown bird, little brown
Right.
jacks. There's a big group of those in my head.
Yeah, exactly. And then the female red-winged blackbird too gets in the
Yes.
mix, and sometimes she's difficult to distinguish. So it's a challenge.
I will make a note to put a picture of the female redwing in next week's slideshow because that is a bird that trips people up. I know I used to get confused by it because I think, oh my gosh, there's an enormous sparrow at the feeder. And it's the female redwing. So I will make a note for next week's program that we talk about those guys because the males have been here for a while, but the females are just now showing up. The guys wanted to get a head start so they could get their territories marked off and get a nice section set off for him and his typically multiple mates is what they'll have. So let me make a note of that for next week.
Thanks, Pam.
All right. Now we're gonna have to look at more. That reminds you of like the hair you pull out of your drain. It's what they line their nests with. It's what they do. Hopefully, this little chipper that lost the nest in the big wind has been able to recoup and make another one. Keep an ear open if you think you're hearing something mechanical, but it's up in a tree. You're hearing the songs of our chipping sparrows. So, last week we talked about the turkey that took downtown St. Charles by storm. It's still wandering around. This is now, let's see, what would that be? Pulley and Kesslinger Road. That's getting out. I don't know if that's considered Elburn out there. Um, I'm pretty sure it's the same bird. That beard is somewhat distinctive. Um, Steve and Marianne, I'm not sure if you're in the group tonight, but one of our local listeners, Steve Patzer, had mentioned that he knows of about 3 different flocks in the area. One just a little bit west of where this bird was initially sighted, northwest of St. Charles. There's some farms as we get out in western Kane County, as we're getting towards DeKalb County and Sycamore. There's a pretty large flock on a farm, not a farm flock, but that on the farm land that's out that way. And then there's one actually over towards the village of Wayne, and then another one down on West Main Street, west of Batavia. So there are flocks being seen in the area. This guy, though, seems to still be doing the solo thing, and again, not in any hurry. Just kind of walking around, taking it all in. This, though, I have to admit, is a much more natural setting for a turkey than when it was on Main Street in St. Charles, when it was walking on Route 31, a state highway in St. Charles. Glad to see he's found at least some peace and quiet, and hopefully he'll find himself another flock someday soon. Anyway, just a quick update on what our favorite local turkey has been up to. Last week, I promised you that we would talk about spring ephemerals, but doggone, it's been cold out. The bloodroot, they always they look the way I feel when we're having a cold spring day. The leaves wrap around the blossoms and they just kind of look like they're just sort of huddled together, waiting for some warmth to come along. Um, I have a feeling that we'll be talking about more spring ephemerals as we do. They said 80 degrees is coming weekend, so we're not going to spend a whole lot on these, a lot of time on these tonight. Besides bloodroot, Miss Bonnie, you sent us a picture of some toothwort that's so trying to get out and get blooming, but yeah, we did have that snow. Here's some chilly looking May apples that are semi unfurled. This is the plant that looks like, I always call them Barbies beach umbrellas. And when they first come up out of the ground, they actually do look like an umbrella that's still rolled up tight. And then as the warmer days come, those leaves will pop open. And then if the plant is old enough, it will actually have two sets of leaves. And then where those two stems come together, we'll see a white flower. And then that eventually develops into the fruit we call the May apple. We've also got our trout lilies. This is another flower that actually needs to grow for several years, sending up just one leaf. And then when it sends up its two leaves, it is ready to bloom. I've heard a figure of as much as 7 years before this plant actually produces a flower. But right now the leaves are visible. Haven't seen any blossoms yet. Trout lily is kind of cool. It's supposedly it's named for the pattern and also the feel of these leaves. They're not slimy like a fish, but they are smooth like a fish, and they are somewhat fish shaped. So keep your eyes open for them too. You never just see one; you always see lots of leaves of trout lilies that are starting to pop up. So just a brief, broad brush across spring ephemerals. We will revisit them after we get some warmer temperatures and hopefully some blossoms. So speaking of flowers, and you've seen, I know we've talked about during the program, all the promotional efforts aimed at getting you to not clean up your yard, to delay your spring cleaning, to leave the stems in place. Well, I try to do that. Well, actually, I do that because I just don't get around to it. But I do have I think it's about 25 years old now, a plant called a clematis in the front yard. And it sends up a lot of new growth, but it will also bloom on old growth. But if I don't cut it back, it gets to looking a little ratty. So I do every other year or so trim back some of that growth and let some new shoots come up. So as I was doing that, you can see my clippers there in the background. I found this object. So now I didn't have the presence of mind, or actually I didn't have the coordination to hold this in one hand and my phone in the other hand, and then my lip balm in a third hand. It just wasn't going to happen. But this silken ball was about the size of a gumball. It was bigger than a dime. It was smaller than a quarter. And I was so thrilled because I wasn't sure what had happened to this lady. So this is about maybe 8 feet or so from where I found the egg case. This was last August. This is an Argiope orantia, which people call the banana spiders. They call the garden spiders, the black and yellow orb weaver. It has lots of names, but I was thrilled to find I had one in my yard, and I don't know where she came from. And I was a little bummed that shortly after I took this photo, her web disappeared. I should point out these orb weavers do have a really distinctive web. The Argiopes, when they spin their web, and that is a web that they use to catch their food with, they always see that zigzag line descending from below the spider? That's called the zipper. It's also called the Stabilimentum. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's thought to maybe add some strength to the web. It helps then it holds the spider and also holds the prey. Um, it's also thought to maybe have some other benefits to it. It might help block UV rays that might be hitting the spider during certain times of the day. It might help birds see it and avoid the web. I've always thought that theory, though, if the bird sees it and they want to eat a big spider, I would think that it would act like an attractant, to draw something in that wanted to prey upon the spider. Then again, that abdomen on that spider was almost as big as my thumb, so I don't know if we've got birds around here that are daring enough to have that sort of a meal or not. But anyway, when this spider vacated this spot, she must have walked across to the other side of my front door and deposited this wonderful egg case. So I put it back on the plant. I'm going to keep an eye on it to see. I'm hoping I didn't disturb it. Some eggs, like say reptile eggs, turtle eggs, snake eggs, they sometimes they don't develop if they move, because a snake lays its eggs in say some rotting wood and then it slithers away, and a turtle digs a hole and lays its eggs and walks away. There's no parental care, and the eggs, if they're shuffled around, sometimes the embryo inside does not develop or doesn't develop properly. So I'm hoping, because spiders don't deliver much in the way of maternal or parental care either. I'm hoping I didn't disturb this little set of spiderlings, or some people call them slings for short. Hopefully they're developing just fine in there, and maybe I can look forward to having a whole bunch more Argiops all around the front door this spring. I'll let you know. I'll keep an eye on it, and if I see any more, if I see this actually hatching, I will definitely get that recorded so we can watch it. All right. Jerry, I got to thank you for this email. Jerry, a loyal viewer, has been doing some traveling. Now, you were down in Georgia, Jerry? Is that what you said?
Yeah, we were in Atlanta to see Georgia State University, and whenever I go someplace, I can't just stay in the city. I have to go find a fun place to hike, or like a garden or something like that. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
just
this
Googled Atlanta hikes, and something came up, and like a list of the coolest hikes in the area. And this was the first one. I'm like, I have got to see that.
Yeah, I have never heard of Arabian Mountain, Georgia. Again, I've only been to Georgia a couple times, but this looks. I've added this to my place of list of places I have to get to. This is just crazy. Uh-oh. Hold on. There we go. Got to slide out of sequence. But I grabbed this, Jerry, just so folks could see. There's Atlanta in the upper left, and then down in the lower right, we've got Arabian Mountain National Heritage Area. And then here's a screenshot from their website. There's lots of landmarks. I guess this National Heritage Area has lots of different components to it. I saw on that drop down, there's a historic school and another mountain, all kinds of cool things. But would you mind, Jerry, just kind of narrating this a little bit? When I saw this, I mean, it looks like you're on another planet.
Yeah, and my son's become really fussy about hiking too, because we go to Starved Rock and Devil's Lake, and he's like, I'm sick of hikes that all look the same. And this just totally wowed him too. So you climb up this granite. It's not really a mountain as far as I'm concerned, but it's like a foothill size. You just walk up the granite, and every single little crack or pock in the granite has something growing in it.
Almost like tidal pools, only you're nowhere
Exactly.
near a shore.
And it
Oh,
was just yeah, it was just a really special place. It was super windy, and I didn't send you a picture, but there was a tiny stand of pines and on top, and I still have no idea how they could possibly have set
wow.
up shop there because the soil, what little soil there is really sandy. So
Wow. Well, I thought it was interesting in reading the description of the area. They told people not to walk in these puddles like this because of all the rich plant life that's kind of forced to grow in that contained area. So they said even if it just looks like water, stay away from it because there's seeds in there, there's developing plants. And then they talked about too how the geology of the area, the mountain, the granite slowly wears away, which is the opposite of the geology we have in this area. Most of the landforms we have around northern Illinois are all glacial, and they're all things that were deposited here. So that's how we got our hills. The glaciers just dumped them here, but down there, these are formed by the wearing away of the rocks. Kind of the same thing we see out like in the unglaciated areas out west of here, out in Glen and stuff. Those landforms are not formed by glaciers, they're formed by the erosion that's wearing away the rock and making these different shapes. Um, this was a cool plant, woolly ragwort. Again, just like popping up out of the rocks.
it was all over the place, like just these crazy pockets with different plants or mosses. And you can't even have a trail because it's granite. So they set up a few cairns to kind of guide you, but you could walk all over the mountaintop and just there were signs that said don't be a plant killer, stay on the gray is what it said. So we did that. We tiptoed around when we had to. So.
God, do you have any idea about of the height of this thing? Was it?
No, I should have looked that up beforehand. It
Well,
it didn't seem like a mountain to me. And I mean, we're in Illinois, so I was underwhelmed by the size of it in terms of mountain. But yeah, it was an easy climb. It was
okay.
very gradual.
I'm glad to hear that. As a flatlander, died in the wool flatlander, I always like even I at one time I thought someday I'm gonna hike the Appalachian Trail, and I've done short little segments and thought, doggone, this place is too hilly for me. So glad to hear that and I can kind of picture again. I've only been through that area a couple of times, but yeah, we're not talking about Rocky Mountain heights.
I googled it. It said almost 1,000 feet,
A
so
thousand.
955 feet
Okay,
of a very gradual climb.
so kind of like Starved Rock.
Yeah, it's actually easier than Starved Rock.
I love it. So this, you said this is a prickly pear, which we do have in this area too, but looks like that's getting ready to pop out with some blossom there. And then you had grasses and moss. And folks, look up in the upper left. See that pink stuff? This was so cool. And this, Jerry, this was kind of the subject of your email. This Dimorphos smallii, it just kind of pops up out of the rocks, huh?
Yeah, it's all over the place.
I love this photo here, the one on the left. And then I went and found another picture that shows a close up of what the blossoms look like. But this one you took, it's just in uh,
It's like
little
the size
pit.
of it's tiny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have sent you one where you can see like a big amount of the surface, and it's just like this patchwork of pink all over the place.
That's
Wherever it can find a place to grow, it grows.
that's so
It was a really cool place.
well. So I looked up to read a little bit more about Dimorphos smallii, and I found out that a synonym for Dimorpha is sedum. And a little bell went off in my head, and I remember being at a native plant sale a few years ago and buying I didn't realize we had a native sedum in Illinois, but we do. And it's this plant's cousin. It's called Sedum Turnitum. And look at the similarity of the blossoms. It's not the cool pink color that you saw in Georgia, but it does have a similar growth habit. And it's also called stone crop, which I thought would have been a dandy name for what was yours called? Elf Orpine?
Yeah, it's not a very glamorous name.
Orpine must
Kind of
mean
stinks.
something. But yeah, there's oops, going the wrong way here. But yeah, this wild stone crop it grows on stone outcroppings, and it's a delicate little sedum that is a relative, a cousin of the plant that's growing out of the stone croppings down in Georgia. So I thought that was kind of a cool little tie-in to make it relevant to our gardeners here in Illinois. So this plant, I found it kind of, it didn't like where I put it. I thought I could grow it. I think the sunlight was too harsh where I put it, so I might try again with it this coming year, as it does have that lacy, those flowers are just so, happy and almost fairy-like looking. Okay, now I apologize. I somehow got a slide out of order, so we're gonna go back. We're gonna go Arabia Mountain backwards, and we're gonna go back to the Illinois Street Bridge, which it's a busy wildlife filled sort of place. We talked about it last week. We were talking about I said the news wasn't the fact that geese were nesting on the bridge. It was that the city was calling them aggressive when really they're just defensive or protective. But I did want to go back there again tonight because Jerry, your sister Laura wasn't able to join us tonight, but she sent me a text on was this Sunday night? No, that was Easter. Must have been Saturday. Saturday at 5:51. I don't have a picture of it, but I wanted to kind of set the scene. So this is Illinois Bridge in downtown St. Charles. It's one of 3 bridges that we have crossing the Fox River. It's fairly trafficy, as you can see there. There are geese nesting in these flower boxes on, I think the north side geese have moved over to the south side now, but there is that wildlife there. Sometimes you'll see pigeons flying around by those lampposts and things like that. Well, Saturday evening, let's see, Laura texted me at 5:51. Crazy story last night. Okay, so it was Friday night around 9:15. Elizabeth, her daughter, and a friend corralled a very large beaver off the Illinois Street Bridge. It was actually on the road on the bridge. After much honking and confusion, they managed to get it back into the river. Laura and I were actually working that flashlight egg hunt event, so we missed all the excitement. But pretty much right where these geese are standing looking over this bridge, there was a beaver. And it got me to wondering, several times during Good Natured, we have talked about the beavers of Delnor Woods. And I kind of wonder if one of those beavers dispersed, maybe wandered through the creek that's at Delnor that hooks up with a creek that would be 7 blocks west of this bridge, and somehow made its way maybe down the hill there. We also have a considerable amount of beaver activity to the south of the Illinois Street Bridge, down towards Geneva. I've even seen a lot of beaver chews at Mount St. Mary's Park, which is just about 2 blocks from this site. But this is once again a story of beavers showing up. This has happened a couple of times in downtown St. Charles. Fortunately, and this most recent time was thanks to Laura's daughter Elizabeth, these beavers have been able to get off the road without getting hit. I I've seen a couple of times west of town on Randall Road where they weren't quite so lucky. But this is the time of year when things are moving around and we're seeing animals where we're sometimes not, we're not used to seeing them. So beavers on bridges is one more thing to keep an eye out for. With that, I'm going to stop the screen share because there was something I wanted to show you. Little blessed event we've had here at Good Natured World headquarters. So I'm going to stop this. Looks like we've got another chat to attend to too. Hi, everybody. Let's see, where's our chat? Jerry, you've got a little bit of Trillium coming out too. Yeah, the wildflowers, I was kind of, as much as I hate having phones that track your every movement, I do sort of like how they send memories. This was from your memories last year or 2 years ago, and comparing some of the pictures of the wildflowers I took last year, we do seem to be a little bit behind. Again, I think when we get that 80-degree weather this coming weekend, we should be able to catch up. So let me step away for just a second. And I'll show you what we got going on over here. It's the thing about insects, you can have them on standby, but then they're kind of up to their own devices. So I can't find the third one, but we have talked, last week we talked about praying mantises and how if you've got any egg cases, make sure you keep track of them because they're starting to open now. We've talked about these walking sticks in the past. This is not our native northern walking stick. This is the Vietnamese walking stick, but these are great teaching insects because they are very easy to keep in captivity. Our northern walking sticks, one time we did try to raise some indoors and they just wouldn't feed. We tried offering them even their natural food, which is the leaves of our hardwood trees. Wouldn't touch them. These guys will eat the leaves of our hardwood trees, but they will also eat romaine lettuce. And they reproduce in captivity via parthenogenesis, which means females lay eggs and make more females. And this goes on and on. An adult, which we have here, they live 6 to 8 months. This one, I really think has exceeded that. I want to say she's getting close to 9 months in age. She keeps dropping eggs, usually about the time her eggs start to hatch. The adult will die, and then the new generation starts. Well, here you can see one member of her new generation using her as a stick to hold on to. And she's still going strong. The baby was the one I wanted to also. I wanted to show you 3 different sizes, but baby's gone missing. Maybe somebody put her in the corner. I don't know. But this is an insect that, like the praying mantis we talked about last week, they develop in what we call gradual or incomplete metamorphosis. They don't go through a pupal stage, P-U-P-A-L. They don't pupate. They start off, the babies look like the adults, they're just smaller. So here's the youngster that has gone through, I think she's gone through 3 or 4 molts at this point. And then here's the adult. feeding right now, as I said, on romaine lettuce. Once the leaves start to come out on the trees, I'll usually snip an oak twig or two. They like to munch on those, but they're not fussy. They'll also eat the leaves of our blackberry brambles, black raspberry brambles, roses. They have a pretty. Um, they're not fussy about the types of leaves that they feed on. Hold on. I was hoping they were going to go into their stick mode. When these insects are disturbed or agitated, they will, there we go, freeze. And they look just like a stick. Which is probably why I couldn't find the baby to show you guys the third example. I'm going to put her down for just a second. So I'm going to put the baby back. Okay. Here's our stick. Here's our stick bug. Look. Hey, don't tell my coworkers this, but 2 weeks ago, getting ready to leave on a Friday, I spritzed the sticks and I gave them fresh lettuce. And then I forgot to put the lid on the cage. So when I came in on Monday, I saw the lid was off. I also saw that the mama stick was missing. She'd actually gone, she stayed in the office here. As far as I know, she didn't go on a walkabout. She continues to drop eggs as she's, she lays several eggs every day. I found quite a few over here on the floor in the office, which I swept up and put in the tank. But she really seems to not be slowing down at all. But I wanted to show you how well this camouflage works when she's actually on a stick. So, as I mentioned, we've got our native walking sticks. They will be hatching from their eggs pretty soon, once it's reliably warm out. They are one of several insects that, well, in fact, plants do this too. They will put a little strip of fat and sugar on their seeds or on their eggs. The insects put a little strip on their eggs that it attracts ants. Ants will take the seeds or the eggs down into their colony in their ant hill that goes down into the ground. They eat the fat and the sugar substance off of the egg or the seed, and then they put it in their waste pile where it can develop. So our walking sticks have that unique relationship with local ants. And it lets them have an added measure of protection. Their eggs are taken underneath the ground where they have a better chance of surviving a cold winter. And then when they hatch, the babies crawl back up out, and then they head up into the trees. Once they're in the trees, it's going to be really hard to spot them unless we get a big wind, which we probably will. We've had several already. We'll probably have a few more. Thunderstorms, heavy rains will sometimes knock them down too. Then if they're on the ground or if they're if they are in a tree by a house and they end up on the siding, on this the garage door, on the screens, then you might have a chance of finding them. I know when I worked down at Red Oak in North Aurora, we had a lot of walking sticks in that woods. Wouldn't ever see them in the trees, but we would find them around the nature center building, on the outside of the building, after a storm, or a heavy wind. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of brag on our girl here. She's been doing really well. Doesn't show any signs of stopping, and she's giving us more eggs, so we know we'll have a secure future generation. All right, I'm going to put her back, and I'm going to put the lid on so we don't have any more escapes. Okay, now, Kelly, I noticed that you had sent a message here with a helpful. Yes, all right. I'm going to see if I can share this quickly here, folks, before we sign off. I'm going to go to the screen share again. Um, Kelly and Greg have come through with a helpful infographic. Give me just a second here to head over to Facebook. This is going to help you make all kinds of helpful IDs. There we go. Okay, everybody got this? We've got our birds, our burbs, our borbs, and our blorbs. Any questions? Kelly, that's awesome. All right. What did the stick's eggs look like, and how are the eggs fertilized? Oh boy. Okay, so the stick eggs. Let me. Sorry, I keep leaving you here. The stick's eggs actually look a lot like little particles of soil. Let me see if I can spot one here. Okay. They are, I would say, about a little over a millimeter in length. They've got crazy, this particular walking stick, the eggs are not at all uniform in color. They have a lot of different designs on them. And for the longest time, I thought they were little bits of walking stick frass, which is the fancy word for poop. Here we go. All right. And then, Meg, your question, how do they get fertilized? Well, the embryo is able to develop without fertilization. All right. All right, I can see the egg really well, but I can't see you guys, so I'm just gonna hold this up. That's kind of blurry. Hold on. Can you see that? The resolution's not real good. Oh. Can you see what's at the tip of my finger? Not really. Can you? It's a small oval. And that's the egg. That's more like almost 2 millimeters. Boy, I wish the resolution was better. Oh, there we go. Okay, see the gray thing on my tip of my finger? Right there. That's the egg. And there's a whole bunch of them in this soil that looks like that. So I just keep the, oh, IT guy's not going to be happy with my keyboard. I keep the substrate moist, and we've talked about that in the past. How humidity is the biggest lack of humidity is the biggest killer of insects that come indoors. They really need a higher humidity than our indoor climates usually have. But anyway, they hatch in I guess a couple of months, and then we start our next generation. So probably be bringing you more insect stories as the weather starts to warm up. And again, I'll make the offer if any of you would like to raise a Chinese mantid, let me know. I've still got that bag of egg cases in my refrigerator back home. All right, does anybody have any other any questions, comments, things you've noticed? Helpful infographics for identifying things?
Hey, Pam,
Mhm.
I just sent you, I sent it on your cell phone, a photo that I had from the walking trips that I had at school of the eggs.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I didn't know how to get it onto. And I was
Oh,
looking,
okay. Let's see if I can hold. I think we've tried this before. So all those gray dots,
Mhm.
turn it this way. Oh, it's gonna wanna, it thinks it's smarter than I am, which it
Ah,
probably is, but let me zoom in here.
but I
Yeah,
wanted to find the walking stick actually laying the eggs.
say that again?
I said I wanted to find the picture of the walking stick
Oh,
actually
right.
laying the eggs, and I did find it.
Okay.
I don't know if there's
So,
an easier way to get it.
so Diane, maybe that helps. Trisha's got some better pictures here. Um, that's a walking stick egg right there. And that's another one down there. Um, oops. Lots and lots. So all those little gray dots there and there and there, those are all walking stick eggs of this. And again, this is a Vietnamese species. May have mentioned this before, but walking sticks are an insect that has been kept in captivity for decades. And there's online, there's a group called the Phasmid study group. Phasmidae is the family that they belong to. And because very few of these walking sticks actually have common names, they have numbers that they refer to them as. And they started with one, and they're up to, I don't know, something in the hundreds. But they call it PSG1, PSG2. Well, these Vietnamese walking sticks are PSG Phasmid Study Group species number 5. So you can look them up that way. Annam walking stick is another name, ANNAM. And here is Trish's up close view of a walking stick. The business end there, and that's the egg about to be dropped down to the ground. Very cool. All right. Anybody got anything to top that? So Jerry wants to know, so in captivity, I don't think there are any males. Maybe if somebody is bringing some of these sticks in from the wild, but um, there are male walking sticks of that species in the wild populations, but my understanding is that in captivity, it's just, and I don't know if they're all, I guess they would kind of be clones of each other, huh? They'd have the same genetic material over and over again. This is a group of sticks that I got, let's see, I started at Red Oak in 2000, and I think it was in 2002 that we started trying to have a walking stick exhibit. And it wasn't until I visited, there was a nature center called, I think it was called Wildwood, something like that, up in Park Ridge. And they gave us a half dozen of the walking sticks that they had. And they've just been cycling through over and over and over again. So I guess for 20 years I've had these walking sticks. And they just, some years, there's so many, I end up giving them to nature centers all throughout the area. Other times, and I kind of wonder, because the last two generations we've had, in fact, that large adult that I held up, she was the only one that survived from that group that I had here. So right now she's got two offspring, the one that I showed you, and then one that was just wee teeny tiny that's somewhere in their enclosure that I left the lid off of. I'm going to have to remember to put the lid back on before I go home. But anyway, yeah, they're a cool thing. If any of you would like to try raising a walking stick, let me know. I'm going to see if I can get some more babies to hatch from these eggs. Again, sometimes a lot of them hatch and sometimes few of them hatch. So I'll keep you posted on that. All right, any other questions?
I looked online and it said that the unfertilized eggs are all females. You need a male to get another male. And even then you only have a 50% chance. So I was thinking like, wow, we're going to have a lot of females.
Yeah. yeah, it's well, and you know this and I have not looked on their website in a long time, but this Phasmid study group, it's centered over in Great Britain, and it was kind of interesting. One of the members there had written about how there's not a lot of space in, say, a flat in London to have a lot of pets, but you can have a lot of insects as pets. And they were really the people who were driving this practice of keeping insects as pets. And I don't know how they spread over here to the United States, and you always worry about invasive species and things getting loose. I know, in fact, I had a little incident when we had just moved into Hickory Knolls. The building, I think we were open to the public, but we had only been there, maybe less than a month, and I was changing out the substrate in the walking stick tank, and we'd always microwave it to make sure we were nullifying any eggs or anything that might be in the soil, so we weren't going to be causing an outbreak of some invasive species, because they said they do like to eat things like oak trees. They can't survive in this climate. But anyway, I was trying to be careful, nuked the soil for what I thought was 2 minutes, but it actually turned out to be 20 minutes, and set it on fire. That's how I found out the fire department was 6 minutes away from the nature center. Haven't had to deal with that since then, but yeah, there is always that caveat when you're dealing with insects that are not native to an area. But this one, most of the nature centers in the area either have them or have had them as a display, because the native ones just don't cooperate, and these guys are so easy, and they make a great display, and they're just really cool. So that's what I had tonight, folks. Hope we'll be able to get deeper into our spring ephemerals next week. I think we'll be talking, actually, we're going to be featuring one in particular, the hepatica, which is one of our earliest bloomers. Yes, somebody have a question? No? Okay, well, if not, great to see everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you back here again next Tuesday evening. All right. Have a
Thank
good
you,
week,
Pam.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Pam.
Pam.
Interesting lesson.
Bye.
Pam.
Hi, Pam. Thank you.
See ya. Oop. There we go.